room than those who are joining us on our WebEx. Thank you for being here. This is our 3-minute warning. So gives you an opportunity to refresh your sandwiches, salads here in the room, or beverages. And for those who are joining us virtually, we invite you to imbibe in whatever beverage of the choice may be appropriate for the time of day you have. So that means if it's 5 o'clock where you may be, enjoy. And we'll start in a few.
And Amy, that could be a
landed on the phone?
I'm hoping, but I don't think so. I was hoping.
Right.
It would be 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
5:30. But he's.
I think that's 5 hours ahead.
It's 5 hours, right? Because they're on British summertime, BST.
Right. Right. Canada's 6, but they're 5.
Right. There's always there's a gap in the timing between when Europeans switch over from when the Americans, and there's always a
they used to be synchronized, and then we jumped the gun by 2 weeks or something.
Yeah, that's
2 weeks.
That's 1 week where
scheduled
4 hours to one.
Right.
Well, Trump's probably going to do this new time zones just to stick with us.
doesn't change at all. Never changes.
There's also a couple of cities in the
They still don't?
I think we're not
South Bend.
because they were right on the border, so they decided it just wasn't.
Yeah.
In Newfoundland, they have like half an hour.
Well, then you're getting into India, which also.
Oh, yeah.
But now we're.
My relatives are there right now.
Really?
They've seen the pictures of icebergs. They went to see the parade of icebergs. The place is famous for big old icebergs, like, beautiful. And then when they're done, Scott's going to give you the clicker. Okay. Or you bring it to me.
Yes. Mark?
Are we ready?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Mark Raffin, Director of Partnerships with BARF. For those in the room, welcome. For those online, thanks for joining us. For those trying to get in the room, hello. Sorry, for those online, I just want to really start with saying thank you, particularly thank you to our sponsors and the participants in the research. Without your financial support, without your research contributions, without your doing research at a very favorable discount to us, we really couldn't have gotten back into the original research that we had. So we appreciate your efforts both on behalf of the ARF and on behalf of the industry overall. So just kind of set the stage for today. What we're doing is kind of sharing with you work in progress on where we are as we prepare for the press release, for the release of this information at our audience measurement meeting in June 12th and 13th. Be specific if you haven't already registered. See any one of us before we leave today, if you're in person or on the website if you're on the phone, and we'll take care of that for you. And then also to kind of set some goals and parameters for the meeting. So, what we're trying to do today is to really share with you the findings that we have so far and have most of the discussion centered around what the conclusion should be and how we take those findings forward at audience measurement. I'm sure, as with any research that gets presented, there will be a long list of questions on some of the detailed methodology, nuances, those types of things. We'd like you to capture those and share those with us and follow up with those. And hopefully we can keep this on. We don't want to get sidetracked on having a discussion on the conclusions because we're talking about how the conclusions. For those of you that are online, sometimes it gets hard to sort of jump in. We can't see what's going on. So in addition to being able to activate your mics, which probably on mute now. You could also submit questions through the chat box. Daniel from my team is on participating in ARF questions. So if you send your questions to ARF questions, Daniel will make sure that that those get addressed and raised to the group. Also, if you have any issues with sound or technological problems and things like that, that's a good place to send them, and we'll work out and try and get those fixed as best we can. I assume something will happen between now and the end.
It always does.
And then, without further ado, let me turn this over to Scott, our CEO, and kick this off and get into that.
Great, thank you. Well, let me add my let me add my welcome and thanks to everyone here for participating, contributing materially, spiritually, every other way with this. This is the agenda. A little start off here with kind of a recapitulation of the findings from how our testing works from last year, and then the new material, both the stuff on context effects, creating effective mobile advertising, and then free-for-all at the end. This is the wall of fame for the current set of sponsors, a very robust and august list, I would say. Given how easy it is for lazy consumers of research to dismiss findings because they are viewed as being from one single source with a self-interested axe to grind, a business purpose. Something like this is kind of fundamental, I think, to the credibility that an ARF-led piece of research can do. Nobody can hijack this. There's some very powerful players with conflicting economic interests, with different methodological viewpoints. So this is part of a process, in my view, of establishing facts about which we can begin to come to agreement. You know, we can argue about the details around those, but it's building some cumulative body of knowledge that helps us to advance the arts and sciences of advertising and of media audience management. So there's almost nothing that the ARF does, in my view, that's more important than work of this sort, where we bring people, where we convene people, and actively this kind of very ecumenical research. So, the 2016, this is the part where I get to channel my inner Jasper Snyder, since these are all his slides. And this is the list of the participants in the 2015 experiments that were reported out in 2016. I assume that most everyone in the room probably has seen these. In case not, this will be the very short course to it. And usually, because a lot of information flows back and forth and we sometimes forget things, it's worthwhile to recapitulate anyway. So this was 3 key experiments done in 2015, an investment of about $1 million with 40 industry leaders collaborating and making this all possible. The key findings, key insights from it, were first of all that advertising does still work, even in a cluttered media environment. We saw clear, significant evidence of advertising effects in ROI and actually affecting the sales of things that were being advertised. Clear evidence that cross-platform advertising has a multiplier effect, that if you advertise on 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 platforms, you actually see incremental lift in advertising effectiveness, and that when you are moving your advertising across platforms, the best examples or the best cases of the most successful practice involve those in which you unify the message but customize the creative to the platform. So you synchronize. It worked better than if you had completely separate teams that were talking to each other with messaging that was orthogonal and non-unified. That didn't work as well as actually unifying it. But if you tried to just repurpose the same creative across platforms, you weren't quite getting as much benefit out of it as you would. So here's the detail of what the cross-platform results look like. And you know, it's clear from this. And this is of course, this was done with analytic partners as the consolidator of 3,200 campaigns, 2010 to 2015. So this is like a very large database of ROI focused market mix models. And clearly, you know, if you had one platform, and about a third of the campaigns really involved only one platform. Anyone want to guess what that platform was? It was 82% of the single platform campaigns were just TV. But if they added a second media platform, they immediately would see, on average, a 19% lift in the ROI of the campaign. And then, of course, and that's relative to TV only, or the single platform. But as you then moved to additional platforms, it wasn't as big of a lift overall. You saw a diminishing return. But as you can see, relatively few. Most campaigns are in the sort of 1 to 2 category, at most 3, and relatively few actually went out to the 4 and 5 platforms of the campaigns that were analyzed here. If you take a look at which additions are the most successful, they all are pretty successful, but by far the sweet spot there with the most impressive lifts involved digital plus TV. Now this included a host of different types of digital platforms. So it could have been digital video, it could have been display advertising, it could have been search. So there's a lot of leeway in there compared to the other media. You know, there's a lot of other details that probably would be informative within that about the degree in which those different combinations were or were not unified and coordinated. The neuroscience-based experiments from how advertising works explored the variations around this notion of creative strategies that were coordinated as opposed to really being done separately and distinct from the execution being specific to given platforms. And as I already indicated, unifying and customizing was the best practice. Among the campaigns that were looked at, unified but not customized was the dominant modality. So in other words, people tended to take the same assets and deploy them across the platforms without any sort of change. 38% really were in that uncoordinated, non-unified, least optimized. Wait, I've got that backwards. Yeah, unified, creative, and customized. So these are the good guys, and these are the ones where where there was no unification. So intuitively, I think advertisers at least already had some sense that was best practice. This clearly was demonstrated by the research. And this leads us into what we'll be talking about today, which is the extension of these these findings into the research program in 2017, which you all have been so generous in making happen. Three components to it. The first we'll talk about today has to do with context effects, and is queued up really, I'd say more than anything, by the sort of rapid deployment and rapid market success of programmatic ad buying in digital, which tends to set the value of context to zero. Programmatic people wouldn't necessarily say that, but you know, the optimization algorithms are all about targeting. They're all about finding that target at the lowest price, which tends to be farther out in the long tail, tends to be without reference to the media environment in which they're found. Now, we've had, of course, some pretty spectacular blow-ups around that, you know, some big embarrassments for advertisers that have been suddenly shocked to find that their, you know, ads on YouTube are next to porn or hate sites or what have you. And I find that shock kind of not very credible myself. They've all been unmuted. They all have some idea what, you know, what happens out in the long tail. So he thinks the lady doesn't protest too much. But this effort really is to, since it does cost more to advertise on a quality site where you are controlling the media context in the traditional way that media usually operated, where you know you knew that you were going to be on the New York Times, or you're going to be in the middle of a primetime TV program pod. You knew what that environment was going to be to some degree, but you have to pay a premium for that. So the question always is, well, what's it worth in ROI? So that's the focus here. Creating effective mobile advertising is the other piece that will be dealt with here and today, and then the work around emojis and experiments with trying to use sort of mobile optimized language in mobile surveys was reported on at the annual conference, so that's not a part of today's presentation. But in this case,
always ready to repeat.
We're always ready to give it to you guys.
Yep.
So I think, yeah, that gets me to Horst.
Okay, thanks. We do need the clicker. And I'm going to be sitting down and really trying to speak into the microphone because we talked to some of the people who are calling in, and they were saying, please make sure we can hear you. There's a lot of echo and stuff like that. So I just want to echo what, speaking of echoes, what Mark and Scott were saying. Thanks for being here. Thanks for supporting the research. I hope this is going to be a useful, interesting day. Chris and I are going to share sort of the host duties here, and the other names that you see on the slide are presenters of the new research. So just to follow up on what Scott said, a quick recap of why we are talking about context effects, how we got here. The research really is overwhelming in this field. Over 50 years of research. We've looked at dozens, probably well over 50 studies that were conducted during this time period. Still under the headline of how advertising works today. These studies are a little bit old. Most of them are about television. Few of them are about other media. Hardly anything is available on ROI and new platforms. And there's this issue of, as Scott just outlined, programmatic pretty much ignoring context. And so there were these two issues. Number one, can we really ignore it? Probably not, but the research that we have on this issue really isn't all that conclusive and convincing and up to date. So it's really important to look at this issue again. And by the time, and by the way, at the time that we did this and talked to industry leaders about that, this discussion about brand safety hadn't really been taking place yet. So it was interesting how this has changed, and we'll talk some more about that. So our research is really based on these three legs here: the literature review that I just mentioned, the new studies that were shared by members and sponsors, and then the original, what we sometimes like to call ground truth experiments that we've conducted and that are still on their way, and that will be presented to you today. Our agenda then is a quick review similar to what Scott just did to remind you of what we talked about. Some of you are new to the project, so that will be particularly useful. And then we will present the original studies, and at the end we'll try to summarize it all and come up with some recommendations and best practices. So at the annual conference in March, we presented sort of a framework for looking at these issues. That didn't work. There we go. A framework of looking at these issues. A model, if you want, a simple model, or some would say a simplified model, but it proves to be a good framework. In the literature and often in the discussion, we find this to be the center of the discussions about context effect. How does the content, typically preceding my ad or next to my ad, influence my ad? However, there are other contexts, and they are very important to look at. One, devices, platforms, media brands. And those contexts have not really been at the center of research in the past because there were not that many platforms. And I think today, because of the proliferation of very customized platforms, this is becoming more important and deserves a special look. And then finally, the third group of effects are how ads influence each other. So typically, ads don't stand alone, and your ad is surrounded by other ads. There could be influences too, and it's worth looking at those. So those are the three main types of contexts. So what are the processes? What are the processes that then lead to these effects? And again, this is a very simple model. You could probably argue, and some papers into the literature are totally dwelling on that issue. Are there 15, 17, 18, 19, or 20 different processes? So we think, though, it's useful to sort of simplify this into two main processes. One, attention transfer. How does the attention paid to the content influence the ad that follows, levels of excitement, and so on? That's process number one. Secondly, it seems good to distinguish that from priming and halo effects, which are typically emotional, but they can also be cognitive processes, where, again, the content may influence how the ad is being perceived. So, what we reported at the annual conference about this attention transfer was this, and this is exactly the same slide. We concluded, based on what we knew at that point, without the benefit, for example, of the new research you're going to see today, our initial insight was that we felt, with all the limitations in the data, that there was strong research evidence that more attention to and more involvement with content means more impact to the ad. And that could be, again, the content. It could also be the platform, device, or the media brand. In support of this finding, we showed a couple of studies. Here is one example. It was a large analysis of Nielsen IAG, now Nielsen brand effect data, that shows this very, very strong correlation. And we'd also seen other research that had the same kind of finding, which was a strong link between attention paid to the content and attention paid to the ads or other measures of ad performance. Now, since then, we've gotten a couple of new studies. Here's one example, and all those studies confirm this finding of attention transfer. Here's a study that was shared with us from Crown Media, which is Hallmark. On the left, you see data on program engagement, and they compared average cable movies with holiday movies. And then on the right, you find two measures of ad impact, memorability, and brand ad memorability, and brand memorability. And you see this lift, which is just very, very consistent with the other research that we've seen. I think it's kind of intriguing here. Even the size of the indices is really quite similar. So there is growing strong evidence for this attention transfer. So that brings us to the next process that we looked at. Again, the initial insight. Again, the same slide we showed at the annual conference with regard to priming and halo effects. We've seen a lot of studies that show that priming generates these kind of halo effects that can improve ad performance. And we're particularly impressed by all the research that showed that alignment, congruence, fit, whatever you want to call it, between the content and the ad seem to boost impact. We gave you an example of research which was done by RMT with Turner and Catalina, and that data was shared to us by Bill Harvey, who is in the room today, and who I'm sure would be more than happy to tell you more about this study. This is a work in progress, an ongoing project. As you see in these data, with analysis of campaigns of two different brands, and both instances of very, very strong positive impact when the emotional drivers of the ad agreed with the emotional drivers of the programs in which they appeared. Since then, we've seen a couple of other new studies, most intriguing in my mind, because you know I have a little passion for neural research. And this is a study, again, using neural research that I find absolutely fascinating. It was shared with us by Spark Neuro, and Spencer's in the room today. And again, he's, for those who are on the phone, he is smiling broadly, waving his hand, and to indicate that he's also very, very happy to talk more about his study. And we have a break here, which is a good opportunity. If you're calling in, please contact us and we'll connect you with Spencer. So what did they do? NBC, a company that we all heard of, especially me, they commissioned a study about Sunday Night Football, and they were willing to share the results. And this is the initial data, and what they did in this study of actual football viewers was a very clear relationship between the attention paid to the commercials. Gee, I'm losing my train of thought here. That when let me put it this way, when the ad was congruent with the event, the attention paid to the ad was significantly higher. And you see here a boost, which is sort of similar to what we saw in the Hallmark research, of about 15%.
It's also emotional congruence, as the previous example of this subject. Different sports?
Yeah, so they were sports-related ads airing during sports games. And the question was, did the sports context create a lift? And we had to do this stuff, a lot of ads, a lot of games. Answer your question, the attention gain was the most significant and clear finding, but we do have another finding regarding the emotional resonance as well, which we can talk about when we deliver additional findings that you comment on.
Thanks, and thank you for that question, because it reminds me, we'll talk some more about that, is the one thing that I think is really valuable and fascinating about all of this new research is it gives us deeper insight of what congruence and alignment and fit means, and how broad that concept is, and how important it is to really zero in on the right alignment for your brand. And we'll talk some more about that, but this is a great segue to the next slide. as I said before, we think there's a lot of research suggesting that this kind of alignment can really bring a lot of benefits. And we're seeing a lot of companies are looking in that. We're getting more and more research on that. And as I just said, the variety of alignments on whatever you want to call it is very, very interesting, you know, because we see it in native, we see it with product placement and endemic. So there is growing interest in all of these different kinds of alignments. And it seems like from the research we've seen that emotional alignment is particularly interesting and worth pursuing, but it's also quite complex. So I think this is a great, great area. And then finally, on the last point here, based on everything that I've seen, I've developed this hypothesis, which I think is supported by a lot of research where people are just being asked about their responses to a product placement and so on, which is if they're well done, people see less of a disruption. And I think this could very, very well be a key to reduce ad avoidance and ad blocking. That the better the ad fits into the content, the better it fits emotionally, the better, the less avoidance there might be. And I mean this to be true not just of digital, but also on television, or also, for example, in audio and in magazines, because Scott has shared, and you can speak to that better than I can, but shared with us how important ads are for subscribers to magazines, and how they have a very, very clear idea about what fits into the magazine and why they like to look at the ad, and which ads, for example, may not fit into the magazine. So I think this kind of alignment and connection between editorial content and advertising, if that is a really, really good fit, I think that can really help reduce ad avoidance. Now, in addition to that, in the annual conference presentation, we looked at a couple of other context effects. We talked about time and place, research suggesting that there is a right time and a not so right time, and place that can enhance, that impact ad performance. We talked about the role of consumer mood and attentiveness in that context with regard to time and place. And then also, as I said earlier, with regard to ad environment, we know, and we talked about the fact that the bad negative influence of clutter is so well established, we don't even have to talk about that anymore. It's a sad thing. And ad performance can also be affected by advertising. So we have a little bit more new data on that too, and again, they confirm. It brings me to my to our Christmas in May slide. It came out of a really good conversation I had with Jessica Meyer from Crown Media Hallmark about the meaning of holidays and how you can create an alignment for holidays. And it got us to the point where we said, this is a really interesting issue. You really have to understand your consumer to optimize this kind of alignment, because to some of your consumers, holidays can mean gift giving or gift receiving. To some of them, it's all about family get-together, and then to some of them, it may actually be about Christmas. So if you know your target, you can really create messages that really capture the holidays in the way that really aligns with your consumer. But this concept can be expanded to all kinds of other seasons. For example, summer. What does summer mean? Or how about the 4th of July? Is it about barbecues, or is it a patriotic holidays? I mean, I have some hypotheses about that, but I think that all of these segments exist, and if you align yourself with those segments, I think advertising can be made more effective. I understand that Hallmark is actually going to be doing research on that they are planning to share with us. Another study. Oh, sorry.
Just a question on this, because your explanation here is kind of emphasizing the emotional alignment of the ad with the program. The example you gave before with the data actually was talking about it in terms of attention transfer. And I wondered how clear that distinction is sometimes. So I certainly adds in the base case there was just any cable other than holiday themed, which was where you saw the list. So was that really attention transfer, or was it this kind of emotional learning?
Yes, and I was, we have on the schedule a discussion on with Scott on today and what all this research means. And the one thing that I wanted to discuss was exactly the issue just raised. Because in the model, while we distinguish between attention and halo effects and transfer, which I find to be useful to focus on, the different kind of issues and have alignment as a, special topic, undoubtedly they're related, and very often they're just really, mixed. And the optimal thing, of course, that you would want is you want more attention and you want more emotional involvement in all of this together. So it's really, I think it'll be a really interesting question, and of course we welcome your input on that too. I think though that for to focus on different kind of steps that an advertiser can or may or should take and the kind of research that you want to do on this, it probably is useful to look at them separately, to zero in exactly on what's the optimal way of being. Yeah. Thanks. So we are talking about time. Does time matter? Our friends at MESH had previously contributed to this issue, and Fiona from MESH is in the room today. And they, again, did some special analysis for our project today and came up with this fascinating finding from their database, which shows that, for example, chocolate consumption, and by the way, fortunately, this is also true of booze. People don't drink the same amount every day. But here, this is a great example how chocolate consumption is not the same at every time of day, and it automatically, of course, suggests a certain time for advertisement. And this research from this year is corroborated by some proprietary research that Professor Karen Nelson-Fields, who founded a new company called Intelligence Company, she shared it with us, and it was research done for a major snack and candy company that also looked at these issues and found a very clear relationship between consumption and mood, time of day, and related that to advertising effectiveness. So again, I think we have good support here confirming that time does matter. And does the ad environment matter too? Oh, yes, it does. You may remember from the annual conference, I think there was a lot of interest in that study by Forethought. They tested campaign ads, influence on ads following, and they found that both ads for Trump and for Hillary created a sense of, well, let's say anxiety and other negative feelings in a lot of people, which was not a good thing for the ad that followed it. We made the suggestion to look at this issue again with more normal advertising, and they will report a new study at AM. It's on Monday, June 12th, and just to get you intrigued, a little hint of the finding. They did find again a negative effect this time for an insurance company ad. And again, it was anxiety. So they have more data, and I think it'll be worthwhile to look at that. For the time being, though, again, we feel that the more research we see on this topic, it seems to go in the same direction and confirming. So, so far then, we've kind of summarized and what we've said and what we found and tested it against the new research that many of you in the room here have shared with us, and other research that we've seen and studied and that members and sponsors shared with us. They seem to be confirming those issues, but in addition, before we get to the original studies, we have some more perspectives on some other contexts, which I find very, very interesting. And again, our friends at MESH, thanks Fiona, shared this data with us. And this reminds us that context, of course, goes beyond ads, it goes beyond the media. It really is the whole context in which your campaign appears. And in this very interesting example, there were news about bank closings from this particular bank, which here is actually named. And that really led to a very, very challenging performance of the advertising during this period of time. So it reminds us that the social environment and all of those things are also factors in the context in which your advertising takes place that should be recognized. And finally, I had not been aware of this study, but Kimberly was telling me that she'd seen the study too, and she remembered it, which proves to me that it's a fascinating study because it was done in Italy. Alyssa Moses from Ipsos shared that with us and reminded us, and it's a really powerful example, I think, of how context effects are really important for shopper insights too. In this particular study, they had two groups who entered the same store. Some got a little flower as a welcome gift and others didn't. And guess what happened? The ones who got the flower spent less time looking at the price. And they bought more. So you can't beat that, right? So in sum, we emphasize, I want to again emphasize, that reaching the right target and considering media and ad costs and all of that are really, really top considerations. But we think that there's a lot of evidence, just based on everything we've seen so far, that there are real content opportunities. We think that programmatic strategies that totally ignore the context are really risky. We think that it's important to explore how you can make different kinds of context work for your ad and work for your brand. But at the same time, still, we need more research on ROI of contextually relevant advertising, and that's what we're going to be seeing in a little while. And we need more research to better understand the processes. How do these effects really come about in order to optimize them? So that was March 2017, and now we had a very interesting spring where suddenly this topic became really, really a top topic that was discussed in media left and right. We take no responsibility for that, and we cannot take credit to that. All the credit deserves, all the credit goes to fake news and porn sites and to marketers who ignored context. And so all of this really, I would say overwhelmingly, this conversation about context effects has focused on brand safety. And there were voices also sort of connecting it with the kind of issues that we have raised. But we want to be clear and to put our meeting today in context. What our project is really focused on is the positive impact of context and how you can take advantage of context to increase your ROI to make your advertising more effective. Having said that, of course, we do consider these negative effects to be, very, very important, certainly worth looking at. In a way, I think they confirm the fact that we are looking at a really important topic here. But that's not what we're focused on today here. We're really focused on giving you information that will help you to make your advertising more effective. And with that, I want to hand it over to Chris, who will introduce the new studies.
Thank you, Horst. I should say Danka. So, yes. Don't worry, he's not leaving the stage. He's coming back. We're just sort of trading off here.
Was it a threat or?
No, not at all. So what we want to do is this. We want to shift gears a little bit. I mean, Horst has so ably summarized the learning that he and Jasper shared at the annual conference, and with new evidence and new data points to reinforce that learning on the context model. But we also recognized that it was important for us to bring original research to bear to continue to both add to our learning around that model, but also answer some new questions. And as Forrest mentioned, one of the key questions that was unanswered at the annual conference was had to do with the ROI of contextually relevant advertising. So we enlisted our friends at IRI, and Banu Bajwaj is here today with us. And Bijoy, and I will butcher Bijoy's last name, maybe you can pronounce it for me.
Okay, Gopalakrishnan.
Gopalakrishnan. And I believe Bijoy is on the line.
Yes, I think you have to unmute him though.
I think we have to unmute him. So we will, Daniel will help us to unmute Bijoy, because Bijoy will actually be, no, it's good. This is a multimedia presentation. Bijoy will be talking a little bit about the methodology.
As a result of the room, Daniel ran out to get IT.
To make sure that happens.
He didn't say I couldn't do it.
As well, we were also very fortunate in that Glenn Johnson, one of our member of our board of directors and head of insights at Pinterest, stepped forward and said, hey, we want to volunteer our platform as another tool to help evaluate the ROI of context effects. Now, I will tell you that we've been working really closely with the Pinterest team. They are diligently doing the analysis. I apologize, it will not be ready in time for the audience measurement conference, and we've shared that with Gunn. So we offer the invitation out to folks that it will be a highlight of an event we're doing in Chicago on July 30th, focused on social and digital platforms. So you'll be hearing more about that. We don't want to lose the importance of that platform as well, but we wanted to recognize that that will not be with us today. But also with us today, Horst and Amy Rask, Dr. Amy Rask, EVP of Media Science, will be sharing additional neuro learning on, and I have to get your grip sheet here, on the halo effect of different video contents of commercials and the strength of it, and how then the bonus that alignment and ad content provides. What kind of a neural response does that trigger for people, and then what do we do about it? And in addition, the final piece to our learning in context is actually a new piece of work that we added once we actually began these projects in March. And it was much thanks to our friends in the audio space, iHeartMedia, Pandora, and Spotify, who really challenged us and said, look, you know, radio and the audio medium is critical to consumers. And we said, you know, you're right, and we don't want to overlook that. So we've asked Michael Smith and the team from Nielsen Consumer Neuroscience to assist us to help us understand the context effect of audio as well. So again, because that project came on after, unfortunately those learnings will not be ready for audience measurement, but we will be sharing that. Again, I'll make another pitch for another event. Those of us, anybody who wants to join us in La La Land, we'll be out there in LA in the first part of August, talking about cross-platform media and entertainment. So that's when we intend to preview and spotlight our learning on our audio results. But we want to focus today on this. We want to focus today, I'm going to start with ROI. And really the question that had come out of our annual conference was this. This is the unanswered question. What is the ROI of contextually relevant advertising? And fortunately this, actually during the conference, CBS Vision and Nielsen Catalina Solutions shared some evidence that context does matter for TV advertising. They had a series of case studies demonstrating, depending on the type of program content, that advertisers that had aligned their messaging within more relevant content to their brand. We're seeing increases, whether it was a sitcom of an index of 114 over the baseline of 0.087 incremental dollars, to a general drama series index of 112, and the sort of baseline of all other programs outside of those four that they included falling just below the norm. I think the point was this. These were programs that had high concentration of buyers, either to the category or brand platform, and they really raised attention. They had the consumer's attention that helped generate that lift. And, you know, in some respects, TV often can lead the way in this measurement, but we also recognize that digital is taking up more and more of advertisers' dollars. And we still wanted to come back to the question posed originally. Programmatic has been so focused on driving down costs and focused on targeting. We said, look, let's focus in on what is the ROI of contextually relevant digital advertising. So here was our hypothesis. Our hypothesis being this, that if an advertiser placed their ads on sites that were more relevant to the consumer and on which the consumer paid more attention to that site, they dedicated more of their time to that site. Our hypothesis is that that advertising should generate a higher ROAS than ads placed on lesser aligned or lower attention sites. Kind of makes intuitive sense. I mean, if the theory holds, you should get a really nice diagonal in that both the lift and the ROI indicated by the size of the bubbles are higher in that right quadrant where there's high alignment and high attention, and lower where there's lower alignment and lower attention. That was our that was what we're trying to prove here.
Was the time measure, time
It was minutes dedicated per, to the site.
per month, per session?
It was on a per month basis. On a per month basis, over all sites that people could look at. And this was using ComScore data, yeah. I think the thing as we were going through this is, and this is what we just weren't sure of, I mean, because programmatic is so cheap, that it could still be that programmatic buy could generate a lower ROAS than something that is more aligned, but because it's so much less expensive, it might still drive a higher ROI despite the lower sales lists. So this is what
really cheap.
it is. It can be dirt cheap.
Although, can I just jump in with one of the...
As the former advertiser.
From a programmatic front, so you make a point.
Yes.
That programmatic is just an algorithm. So most of the people are setting their programmatic out and applying the least reliable. But, you know, the importance of this work is if we find out the value of context, those algorithms can be reset to, so
It's yeah, right. And no, it's
the lowest eyeballs versus.
And I think, thank you, Mark, and I think that's an important.
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry, I had.
No, it's fair. Josh, go ahead.
It's one job. So ultimately, I don't know.
Yeah.
It is something related to audience, quote unquote, audience size. But it doesn't need to be.
Doesn't yet.
That.
But I think, you know, I mean, what's missing and why we're doing this is the research isn't there to say that these context things pay out. So in lieu of that, right now, people are saying it's programmatic.
Yeah, but at some point, some sort of context classification can become a piece of data that ends up in the programmatic transaction.
Yes.
No, I think it's.
Trading on a private exchange, you're already kind of controlling for that content.
Yes. Yes.
Also, often, sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, have a tendency to throw the term around as an industry a little too loosely, and I think, you know, Josh is right to correct it. It is simply that. To cheapen the viewer on the other side. Yeah. I think, and you know, there are questions as well about financial exchange going on anyway. But and so just to give you the scope. IRIs, real expertise in data. Those who are, and I am one, that advertising has a long-term brand building effect. Admittedly, we were not focused on capturing the brand building effect here. We were looking at the short-term impact of, but we had so much activity, we were able to focus in on the latter part of 2016 and the first part of 17 and had sufficient cases to do our analysis.
So, Chris, that was also true, that emphasis on short-term effects for the studies done in the literature of TV.
That is true.
I mean, almost all these marketing models are looking at short-term effects.
Especially when you're looking at a sales lift as opposed to an upper funnel measurement. Yes. And unless we go back to 1989 and the seminal work demonstrating the long-term impact of advertising. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn over to Vijay. Vijay, can you?
Yeah, I can. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear.
Okay, wonderful. Chris, you were breaking up a little bit. I don't know whether it was just for me or the others, but I can, you know, walk through this next set of slides. Hello?
Yeah, speak up.
Okay, perfect. Thank you all for inviting us to this presentation. My apologies for not being there in person. We had but Banu is there with all of you. My name is Vijay Gopalakrishnan, and I focus on product development and execution related to IRI Lift. In the next few slides, we'll just walk through at a high level the methodology that was used for this particular study. It is also part of our standard Lift offering. So essentially, the focus of IRI Lift is to isolate the impact of exposure alone on offline sales at the household level. And in this particular case, we are looking at a set of campaigns relevant to this particular study. And there are a couple of steps related to how this is all put together. The first step is, of course, to collect the exposure data. We work with our partners through ARF in order to collect the exposure data from the advertisers. And from that set of exposure data, we then match those through onboarders to our FSP database, or frequent shopper program database, which is loyalty cards essentially. So what happens is essentially you have your exposure file which has cookies. The cookies or device IDs are then mapped to an onboarder to household IDs. Those are then matched to our database of loyalty cards. And so now you have a rich data set that combines exposure as well as purchase behavior for the same households. Once we do that, the next step is building a test and control environment. So obviously the folks who are exposed would form the test group, and the control is then matched to the test on two key criteria. Because we want to ensure purchase behaviors are very similar between the groups, we match on penetration, that is the category penetration for that particular, for the category the brand belongs to, one. The second thing we match on is pro scores, deciles. Pro scores is actually a purchase propensity scoring method. What it does is it takes all the 125 million households in the US against each of the category buys, and we can go to the brand level as well. You match them basically in deciles of heavy spenders all the way to the lightest spenders. And what we do then is to make sure the distribution of the exposed group in deciles matches to the control group. So we pick the control group in order to do that. That way, it's apples to apples. You don't have heavy buyers in the exposed group and light buyers in the test group, or vice versa. Once we do that, then you have set up the data set, you have the test, you have the control, and then it's the question of calculating the diagnostics, which is the KPI measures include sales lift, which we provide as a percent, as well as the dollars per household, penetration, dollars per occasion, and occasion. Occasion is, of course, the number of trips you made to the store during that particular campaign period, plus a lag. And then we have essentially an experimental design shop, test control, and the methodology used for this is generalized linear model, mixed models. Basically, we look at the effects of creatives, publishers, etc. on the on sales lift, and we report them as separate breaks as well. In addition, we also control for causals, which is where the ANCOVA comes in. Causals are essentially, you want to control for what we call trade in the store promotions, like temporary price reductions, coupons, features in the store, displays. So that's through an analysis of covariance, and we balance that out. Once we do that, then we just project it back to the exposed group, and also compute a return on ad spend based on the campaign costs. So that's essentially the high-level approach used in this study. And generally speaking, we provide sales lift based on all these measures. So we can do it by placement, targeting, etc. For this particular study, it was germane to look at publisher network, because that is the focus of context versus cookies. So, and that's where you will see much of the focus. And just so we are aware, a little bit nuance here in how this is put together. When we think about purchase behavior, as a layman, I think of walking into a store, buying something, and walking out. But in terms of more from a statistical standpoint, it's actually three distinct elements that come together. The first is the purchase event. Did you actually go into the store and buy the product or not? It's a 0-1. The second piece is how much of the product did you purchase? And the third is how many times did you walk into the store to purchase? So these three have different distributions, and therefore it makes for statistical efficiency and precision to model them separately. And then sales lift is nothing but the multiplication of those three. So it's simple arithmetic at that point.
So, Bijoy, thank you. I'm now
we started because we had to look at attention and alignment. Oh, I'm sorry. So we did that. Was we used for alignment. We used. Got it. Is it okay? Yeah. So for alignment. Knowledge of what that network or publisher was, what the brand was, and how aligned those were. So there was they made that. We classified as low. So that so the first yeah,
Quick question.
yeah,
So you've got the 0.85.
yeah.
That's still a positive lift, right?
Yes, that is still a positive. Yes.
Yes.
The, Chris, you want to add something?
No, no, no. Go.
So these are the indexing versus medium and low. Now there are to be made, but with high alignment and high attention. Yeah.
However,
However,
we weren't satisfied. I mean, I looked at it, and Banu Bijoy and I had a very long conversation on the Friday before a long weekend. I'm feeling under the weather. But the point was this. I looked at it, and I said, this is, microphone's not working. I said, this is all way too good. So you back? Okay, yeah. So
we peel back the so as you can see, so this is the lift index, so this aligns to the blue circles, and this is the ROAS index, which aligns to the green. So you start seeing a lot of variability, right? Even in the high or high medium, there is a second read was actually red. So in terms of indexing to the average, it was way below the average. And we saw some green in the low medium category as well, right? Now, as you can imagine, there's a lot of there's a big mix here, right? Because up top we have the publishers and we have one network, and that's a programmatic, but it does well both on sales lift and on ROAS index. So Mark, maybe in that case, they had set it up to be more premium inventory, right? And it worked. And then we have a display publisher here, and 0 here just indicates that we did not get any lift in this case. So this publisher did not do that well. So clearly there's a lot of variation and a lot of difference in what we're seeing. One of the other key things for us was the cost information. So for a lot of us, getting cost information, getting accurate cost information can become a bit of a challenge. So we did use a few averages here which are skewing the results as well.
And actually, we've got that on the next page.
We've got that on the next page. So we've seen the onion a little bit more.
The asterisk here for Ben and Dave.
Yeah. So this particular network had a high alignment, but when and low attention. It is a network, so it was very hard for us to to classify that. And given that we did not see any lift, we were forced to assume that there was something maybe incorrect in the way we were classifying it. So we brought it down here. And once we talk to the brands, maybe we can get some more clarity on what exactly they bought, and then we might realign where we place it, but that's the aspect.
So, Chris, does this mean like from a real media planning standpoint, you know, the context that we're looking for does pay out, but it won't pay out on an individual, like, I mean,
That,
look at premium context overall.
instead of
Yes, but I mean, that doesn't mean that every time your banner drops in premium context.
and I think that's let's focus on alignment first. In general, if you are more, it ought to improve your off. As we peeled this back, we said, you know what? There is a pattern, but it's not a guarantee. And I think there were other things that need to go on as well. Number one is understanding exactly not just the publisher you're buying, but what content you're buying and how you're communicating it and the quality of the creative you're using on that particular site. It needs to be aligned. However, I think we're going to hear some additional learning on how consumers' brains respond to certain types of alignment from Amy next. So we'll come back to that as well. We'd also point out this, I think as we noted, as particularly in the ROAS index, we are trying to go back to update some of our CPM calculations here before the conference on June 12th. Right now, we're using a best estimate in some situations of $6 CPM. But we felt that even if that, I mean, $6 was a pretty decent if you thought about it from a quote-unquote programmatic buy.
Yep.
Not the cheapest, but not the most expensive. So we thought, look, if the CPM was actually higher than 6, it probably wouldn't change the results too much. Somewhat. Not
is much more robust read. I think ROAS may change a little bit.
Yeah.
And there's a wide variability in terms of number of sessions per publisher.
You're absolutely right. So the way we do it is that we only look at households that were exposed and were not exposed, right? So if we were doing, say, a marketing mix, I would say. Yeah. Yeah. There may be some impact on the amount of reach that you're able to generate and the frequency you are creating in that, but we do not explicitly control for that.
Yeah.
Just be clear, you made no judgment on creative quality, right?
We did not make any judgment.
Something could be in the high alignment category, funny site, funny ad for a very unfunny product. And it would be counted as alignment, right?
It would be counted as highly aligned and potentially also high attention.
Exactly. But it didn't work. And I think in the history of research, advertising research, we found a lot of examples, for example, where people created a wonderful, creative, funny ad that everybody loved, except the consumers of the product hated it because they didn't think the problem that was made fun of was really funny.
Yeah.
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 You're right. I think creative, frequency, those are factors that, you know, that.
Fiona, yeah.
Can I just ask a quick question between
Please.
alignment and attention? Did you get any sense as to whether one was relating closer to list and ROAS or not?
Yeah, you know, we did try to look at that. I think Vijay more
Alignment. I'm saying it within this context, and Vijay is on mute, so we're going to have to speak for him, and we'll follow up. But Marla? basically attention is nested in under alignment in certain circumstances. So it's not that we're not trying to discount it, yeah, but it's hard. I mean, it is difficult to try to tease out.
I sort of have a question about related with really having to do with the aggregation. If I read this correctly, everything above this line would have been at the upper right-hand corner of the aggregate, right? And then this is the sort of cross.
Yeah.
And this is the low. So you have combinations. There's only one here that's high.
There was only one observation.
And so you got a bunch of high mediums that where the preference goes to the alignment side rather than the attention side. But then you have other ones where that's reversed. Where it's medium on the alignment,
right,
high on the attention, that end up in the base case. So I just wondered how that. I mean, because that implies. This is the more subjective judgment.
Right.
This is actually a measure of time, and it might be.
That's correct.
You know, a lot of things can go into time spent per month. That could be a measure of loyalty, or actually of the generalness of the site. It might not be as robust of a measure of attention as, say, time spent per session.
Exactly, and for user, because what we're doing is we're using an average for the site for the month. Now, I may be spending a lot of time on that website, and you may be spending very little time. And when we average across us, it might give us a poorer metric. And that was one of the reasons that when we started, we just gave a little more attention to the alignment than to attention itself. If you do, though, just look at all the H's for alignment, you'll see a lot more green than if you looked at the H's for attention. There's a lot of red here. There's red
on the left. On the left.
With the television results, in our study,
We had also tested and the more time spent with the service, it led according to Nielsen Catalina data. So, the overall effect of alignment was times greater than the average effect of another attention measure called LEAP, which was only about a 10% lift, and alignment was 35%. So very consistent between TV and digital findings. The only other thing I want to say is, in terms of the cost, can contribute more to the cost data.
Thank you, Bill. Yeah, no, we will. I mean, again, we were working quite enthusiastically over the weekend. We have from able to as well. So
thanks, Bill.
So just concluding. Actually, and I think we've kind of talked about this. As we said, we think the hypothesis holds. So it was important for us to really dig into the details to find the warts and say, okay, wait a minute. Yes, there seems to be a benefit to higher alignment, but it is not a guarantee. Same true with attention. We need to really focus in on the campaign objectives, network composition, really what was going on and what were people trying to accomplish. we want to continue to build on this, and we have other work that we're doing with one additional advertiser. But we wanted to bring to you today what we've learned today, and kind of start stress testing this before we really go public with it. So, one, we appreciate your feedback, and two, are there any other thoughts right now? Other things that we ought to be digging into over the next week and a half? And if you want, feel free to share. Aaron, question. And we'll follow up. So, Asnat, Banu, Fijoy.
Thank you.
You only perhaps to the point that time spent per month takes into account loyalty. You know, it's a sort of repeat visit. So, you know, the weather site that you check all of the time, or the stock site, you know, that you go to, and it may be useful, I think, to look at other time-based measures that maybe don't incorporate loyalty as much, like time per session, you know, and see whether the results change at all when you look at it through different methods.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did do it per unique visitor, but I mean per household would be the best. But you're just getting that data at a household level, who spent how much time. That's you know, that's really hard. Feed in. Yeah.
Opening up their data to us, so we really do appreciate it, and we'll look at some other ways to cut it. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry, Fiona, you guys say?
I was just going to say a couple of others. I know we mentioned creative, but I don't know if there's a way of even just scoring the creative if the advertisers have got that in terms of, you know, high, medium, low quality, whatever they've got. And some other data that we've been picking up, looking at our kind of database over time, is when in the day things are viewed and how positive those are. So in particular with service brands, we saw in the evening after 6 o'clock that any experience becomes more positive.
Right.
And we think it's probably because people have more time to spend attention. On packaged goods, we saw the morning, which was TV, and we saw the evening, which was online.
Yeah.
So again, you know, if people are exposed at certain times, will that kind of context make a difference?
Yeah, you showed
different types of context.
You showed the state on food, which was lunchtime and distinct bump. So
Yeah. We have seen in marketing mix work as well that, you know, closer to the weekend, ads aired closer to the weekend for CPG do better because a lot of the purchase is planned and it happens on the weekend. So yeah, we can look into time.
We can do that.
We can see that.
Okay. Thank you. Good. Thank you. No. I'm going to keep going, Amy. No applause, please. Because I want. I'm actually now going to turn over to Dr. Amy Rask.
Thank you.
Share some preliminary learning, again preliminary, on the work the media science team has done about understanding halo effects and how consumers respond, how their brains respond to the interaction of content and advertising. So maybe I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. That we conducted. But basically, we looked at answering two separate experiments. But the first one was ads. So content of the program segments that they're placed within. So do the funny ads perform better after funny content versus after a different type of content? So, so and all of that good stuff. And then funny, sentimental, and informative based on what that intention was. And then an informative content. So we looked at so we can compare the alignment versus non-alignment. So instead of and that's the programming, which was our control. And as you can see, throughout the course of the 30-second ad. In addition, the program, and we can see that so and so neutral content. That and then we and again this is distraction.
So what would be an example of misaligned humor?
It would be a funny ad appearing after fearful content. But it's just where that emotional appeal is not aligning. We saw stronger biometric response. And then interesting. So and that was just the brand name.
Well, thank you.
And had some conversation with Dwayne Duran, who in Perth where it's 2 a.m. What I think, and before, I think there's some general confirmation of the findings that we talked about. But then comes the interesting part about the memory. And I think the reason this is so insightful, in my opinion, is there is with regard to funny, that there is to be, that people maybe, one could say, are sort of on a one track. They are just focused on that they forget about the brand. And I think it gets back to the lesson that we've seen in many advertising studies, that in order to make an ad effective, the story, the tenor of the ad has to align with a brand image, what the brand stands for. But importantly, if you want to make a funny commercial and have this work in alignment, you need to connect the joke, the humor, all of that with the brand. And I think we all have the experience, especially in the Super Bowl where everybody pays attention, that we look at these ads and we're just saying, this was like the funniest ad. What was it for again? Does anybody remember what it was for? And then here. So
I'm very intrigued by this arousal chart. Because the arousal chart, if I'm reading it correctly, saying all the parts that people were thinking was funny, or they were responding to the humor, and so they're quite aroused. That would seem to be a very high level of attention, but then is trailing off once they've kind of they've kind of rebalanced.
Right.
And is it safe to say that the brand is usually displayed at the end of the plot?
It's a good question, and it goes back to that metaphor of peeling back the onion. We haven't been able to dig deep enough to look at the individual ads, to look at differences like that. So that's something we do plan to do. So we may be able to categorize the advertisers and say if the brand is late versus early, or if it was interval with consumer versus separate. We may be able to glean more insight out of it.
You think of the mind as really only focusing, the executive attention function that says, okay, I'm really going to pay attention to one thing at a time.
Right.
Maybe being involved in the humor narrative actually undermines the ability to kind of make threads for the memory of that.
Scott, I think this it also speaks to the question that earlier, which I didn't want to jump in and answer at that time, but the question around the difference between attention and emotion and which we're paying attention to and how they interact with each other. So this focuses a lot on emotion because it would be very interesting to look at the G signal for attentiveness and see where that shows up as different. Yeah. And to answer the question that you posed earlier, what we tend to see, although there's some exceptions to this, is that emotion tends to precede attention by a short time frame. So within about half a second of feeling a strong emotion, we tend to then tune in and pay a little bit more attention. And so attention does often correlate really strong with what we remember later and whether it's brand and all those things. So it would be very interesting to sort of repeat the same study, but also some attention.
So for that, and emotion. And Scott, and that and so our main goal, which is to provide information to help you make your advertising more effective by taking advantage of context effects, really should maybe be phrased this way. We want to give you all this information to inspire you to do more how you have can take better advantage of context effects. And so we talk about the relationship between attention. That greater attention is there too. Content ad alignment generally seems to help, and we see more data on that. And as we're peeling the onion, I think we're reminded that the specific brands and the specific creative and all of that really are decisive here. But in general, effects and to explore them further, and I think since there is just so much focus on targeting and very often so little concern about the context other than avoiding the work, we think it's really important to remind the community to take a look at each platform and explore the strengths, play to those strengths, to each medium, to each media brand. Think about the different kind of emotional alignments and also cognitive alignments that you could take advantage of. One topic that I want to raise is, with regard to television, is whether it might be worth paying more for the first position, because we have seen some research, but we expect more research to whether if you have alignment that works successfully, that in order to take advantage of that, you have to be in the first position. Because if you're in the third position, well, maybe the smiles have disappeared by then, and maybe your research can speak a little bit more to that too. And
Of course, it's not limited to television. I mean, if we think about it, again, if we think about it as a digital space, it's the whole debate about the role of viewability standards and time spent and amount visible on the page, and what does that mean for available inventory on quote-unquote premium publishers, which others have demonstrated can deliver a higher ROI. I mean, I think the point is that, again, I think what we're seeing is that while a greater alignment and more attention seems to deliver stronger business results, it comes back to what are the business objectives of the advertiser.
Totally agree. And I would say to get to the last here, if you're speaking to people who are just so focused on targeting, I would say one way to look at this data is to say, yes, targeting is super important, but so far we're placing so much emphasis on consumer targeting. We also need psychological targeting, and especially in the digital space, that can be done often much, much easier, because you don't have to, create a super expensive television commercial. And just really use the research to understand your consumer better and to find out how you can really add to the demographic and the consumer dimensions, which are almost exclusively used, add this emotional dimensions. And then to optimize all of this, I think you need this triangle, and the creative really is in the middle, and it's really in the center of it. And it has to be the alignment between what the consumer wants, what the consumer thinks, what the consumer mood is, the context in which your ad appears, but it also, of course, has to be consistent with the brand, because the message, you know, has to resonate with your brand. And just to show you this slide, we've shown it in so many ARF presentations. It really is important to focus on the creative quality. And again, there's so much discussion about media plans and where to put the money and where to save the most money. So it's really important to remind people of the importance of creative. So really successful and innovative creative that really works. So for example, had enormous success with their Thank You Mom campaign during the Olympics, because they realized that alignment with the Olympics is not about sports, that especially for their consumers, or like women over 40, the Olympics are not a sports event. It's about the children. It's about the athletes. The young athletes are competing who could be their kids. It's not about breaking the record per se. It's about, you know, the thrill of victory and being more successful, and came up with this idea of creating very smooth transitions between the program and the commercial break. And what they came up with, for example, in a sport, this is now Formula One car, is to have between the ad and between the ad block and the programming. And then finally, in a recent beautiful, I did it. With this neighborhood, and here. And they're putting up this very piece of art. There you go. So more,
as we said throughout, a reminder that even what we've shared today and what we will share at audience measurement in 10 days is not the end of what we're going to do. So we'll get some additional and then media science team are working on additional further analysis. You focused on humor today, but you've got more emotion states, if I'm saying that right, that you're working on, right? And that will be for audience measurement and beyond. And then as we talked about Nielsen consumer neuroscience, well, hope I get that right. We'll have context effects of audio in August. And Horst, you're curating additional research from other members.
Yeah. A little bit more about the audio study. I'm kind of excited. I'm like into audio, and just recently, there's just so much interesting research about the power of music, and that's going to be explored here. And Manuel and I were at a neuro conference, for example, where we saw this fascinating study where the bottom line was the music had an impact on how the patrons of a restaurant experienced the food. some of the music made them like the food better than others. So if music can do that, I can just imagine what it can do, you know, for your brand. And with regard to the additional research, Ashley is here. We used to work together at NBC, and we've been talking to each other about a study that her networks are doing, which is, I think, really fascinating. And I think there's a good chance that you might be willing to share some of that with us this summer. So that'll be better. That we are another number of other people we're talking to. Freewheel is planning something. So I think there's great in terms of, especially in terms of finding emotional alignment. And so we are very excited about continuing this, and hopefully you will share our excitement and interest and continue working with us.
So we thank you for your feedback on our preliminary deep learnings today, and encourage you, if you have additional thoughts, to share them with either Forrest or myself over the next few days. We're going to take a break now for about 2:30 Eastern Time, 1:30. I know, that was what he wanted to say.
Okay.
You didn't see him feeding the words through the back of me? That was the we will be fixing the audio. Yeah. Interruptions. So thank you all. Yeah, we'll be sharing learning of mobile creative advertising. So stay tuned. Thanks. Okay, guys, we're going to have to the audio is big crowd still.
Just knowing that at the house.
We're going to focus right now on just getting it right for your session.
Okay.
And then we're going to, I think, yeah, that's the best thing. There was a third. That was it.
You're right about this crew being interested in talking. So
This one? And ever since there was an extra mic added, or something was moved around, that's when it started happening. So,
What, guys? You can't.
How many mics do we have on it?
I would much prefer if you have 1, 2, and then you can have a third, but try not to move them.
Try not to move any of them?
But every time you move them, it cuts in and out, and that's what started happening.
Movement. If they're laying on the table, you should be able to have all of them.
Because when I set it up originally, for like the first hour, it was working fine. And then something happened in between that, where things started cutting out.
Well, yeah, we have people asking questions, which we said that was likely to happen. And it was not just asking questions, but it was commentary. So it wasn't a question to clarify, which I could just repeat. It was a statement in response to, and that's not something that's just repeatable. And then we had presenters who were sitting at different locations, which we knew that was going to happen. We said that at the outset that Amy was going to be sitting over there, and Banu would be sitting over there, and that we would have to be rearranging the mics at that time.
You never signed about that. When I asked originally, I said, they told me that there were going to be presenters here.
Presenters here and then one over there.
Well,
Okay.
We'll set up.
If they're laying on the table like that, with the slant pointed towards the speaker, all laying on the table,
it should work fine, no matter how many mics you've got out there. So we've done that. It works. When they start moving all around.
Yeah, but well, I know it didn't work this time, and I'm not sure why. But
and it didn't work last Thursday either.
There was a lot of movement in the mics during last Thursday too. People were shipping over. It's not great, believe me. I'm not trying to make an excuse, but it is what we got. So we're going to have to get new hardware of some sort.
So why don't we do this? So Manuel and Kimberly will be here. Scott is going to be there, and Scott will continue to ask questions. So there needs to be a mic there. Yep. And then there will need to be one mic to the rear.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, are we abandoning the single mic theory thing, or?
I have. We had always been told that if people can be heard, you should hold the mic.
Is it possible? And then I say to anyone, the other mic,
Big one that I run around with, and if anyone wants,
I don't know whether that's going to create.
I don't know.
We should experiment at this point in the game,
No.
right?
So what?
well, I think the thing to do then is that if anyone has a question, have them before the question gets answered, comment needs to be repeated. I mean, I could do that. I know. I ordered it.
That's been one. Custom 1, 2.
I'm gonna take Bonnie's seat here.
Okay.
Or one over here. Where's yours?
Hey.
Are we on time?
So,
I mean, most of the
test.
That's usually how I am.
I think the minus
Would we buy show much or show much not going well?
Yeah, that was great.
maybe we should.
Door mics. Door mics. For the audience, for the, okay.
Yeah, we're thinking life cycle.
Where did that microphone go? One over there?
Oh, go back.
Test, 1, 2. Okay. Test. Testing 1, 2. Like test. Doesn't sound too bad. Testing 1, 2. Can you turn on this? Turn on the other one real quick.
All right.
I know.
Cool.
I know.
So we probably try that out.
Now, is it so now that as a technology head of and integrates so form of we can understand
Right. Cool. Yeah. Where's the left? Why?
I don't sit this long without having I drive me nuts because I sit there and then I'm watching myself and like, you must stand. And I need to. Yes. It's not mine. I just had a new one. I haven't opened yet.
Oh, okay. I filled it out.
So then this might be. No, look at
Yeah. I just left it yours?
Yeah.
Oh, they're kind of cool.
Some country, but I mean, they're it's just read all right? No, it's radio, but they're available.
That's cool.
They had come with a little couch piece of hat inside.
Oh, you just like put it in your pocket.
Yeah, I try to keep it small.
You don't lose it. I would lose it.
I always do something dumb, like stick them upside here, like unstand.
Yeah, that's what I chip glasses. I know you lose them.
Well, there was a deal. There was like buy one get one half off. I'm like, you know what? I've been dealing with the same one. I have to wear contacts. I keep the frames and then I get the prescription.
Why don't you just laser?
No, because if you have an
Yeah.
you can't because the issue where you get the laser is the shape of the lens is like out.
Yeah.
But the thing is exactly a divot.
Yeah.
So they can't. Have you ever had that in? Yeah.
No. My brother had it. My best friend had it on Black Thursday last week.
Just like that, right?
Yeah.
I heard though that our bodies need to change and so effective for certain amount of time. And then like students in Dartmouth have gotten it and somebody was like, oh why? I don't even need it again.
Can you do it again?
I think that there's a finite amount.
Yeah.
Yeah, tough line with the talking about.
No, I got it. Actually, I had perfect vision when I was in karate. In ninth grade, I got kicked in my eye and it detached my retina.
Oh.
That's off. But that's I finally.
Could you speak into the mic?
Try speaking. Testing 1, 2. Testing.
Testing 1, 2.
I saw me yesterday. I had my.
Testing 1, 2.
No, everyone averages that. What about people on the side?
Because I realized that
You have that. You have this one
One thing I
too.
want to say is that we did find arousal for Star
What if we put the little mic in the middle?
And where we did find it, which also informs that Taylor that we were talking about, is just fire during the reading and the consumption of the sensitive information.
Oh.
That was, and I can.
You can really? Fire what?
About the different things that occurred.
Let me find you a place.
It was pretty low.
Okay. Bill left. So there was some summer also happening when they were living in Canada.
Right.
Before they
the response, you think when they were looking after but you don't see it here.
Okay.
And we were talking about differences in the arousal. This is more cognitive transaction. It wasn't necessarily visceral and emotional sense. This is more cognitive.
Yeah, I know you're and also like when you're controlling the unit, there's not much.
But GFR doesn't have data.
Yeah.
That seems it could be the same thing.
Yeah, like using it for yours. That's some behavior of it. Yeah, maybe that's why.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you actually
Give me any sign.
I think the other thing is the negative outcome. The thing is the city not accurate in terms of the audience classification.
Can you try speaking?
Yeah. You want me to try? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Try speaking a little bit louder.
Testing 1, 2.
Yeah.
Testing 1, 2.
I think it's not always.
1, 2. Testing 1, 2. There we Is that going to pick up on the side?
You can pick up
Testing 1, 2.
But Daniel,
it's coming off a little bit.
Yeah, like eyeballs. Yeah. I live on the yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
So apparently the transmission was a disaster when we were having the discussion. So you just need to be very careful trying to.
Right. Yeah. I'll make it.
It was quite irregular. So parts there was borrow and we got an extra. We got to figure that out.
A little bit difficult if you have. And add at will. So without further ado, Manuel Garcia, over to you. Thank you.
We just want to make sure the mic, we want to check the mic.
Okay.
Folks on the line, we're going to take 2 minutes and apparently we need a little bit more time.
Yeah, so little traffic that I thought there was some zombie apocalypse. And we weren't listening to the radio, so we didn't know. It was uncanny.
Reasons?
Didn't follow usual community access.
Oh my gosh. We sailed into the city from East Hampton. Yeah. It was like an hour and a half. That's unheard of.
That would be New York City. Zombies would be on the street. Don't come in.
You always have to have that reverse psychology of the crowd, right? The crowdsource.
It was real empty at bars. Everybody was on the road.
Kind of like a neutron bomb. Like, you got New York and all the people are gone. Yeah.
Okay. Apparently, Manuel, if you speak loud, so put on your stadium voice.
Your outside voice.
This is too bad. I don't know if that means anything. Okay.
Can we wheel that thing closer to them? Because there's no slack in the program.
I can do that.
Hang on.
Should take up everything in the room, so you should be
We're
good.
just trying to get.
A little bit closer. All right. Project.
Okay.
Take two.
You're standing on the net.
Yeah, so why do we focus on mobile? So we believe that the mobile platform provides the highest opportunity for many, many reasons. Some of the reasons are shown here. The ad spending is very high and growing. We use it more and more. We check it all the time, all day long. And most of us, we buy products and purchase services through our mobile. I know there are such opportunities that we are kind of new-ish, so we are not doing things the best way because we don't know how to do things the best way. So we also found that in our research last year. There are all sorts of technical problems today.
What did you break down?
I did, right? I heard that. That's right.
What computer? Go ahead. Well,
No, it's the map. Oh, that's great. Yeah. Maybe there's someone. Sorry for that. Oh, good. Yeah. She's just like go back and then. Okay. Yeah, so we found that the induction campaigns in that study that we did in 2016, that 62% of the campaigns were not using mobile best way. And the reason for that is also, as Todd was pointing out before, that the common practice used to be to develop something mostly for TV primarily and test it for TV. And then once it's like approved for TV, we just use it everywhere and we think that it's going to work everywhere. And that's not always the case. And we saw in our research, you probably remember some of the data and the videos that we showed last year a couple of times. But there's a lot more evidence coming up that, like using, repurposing your creative execution from different platforms to mobile is not the optimal way, and that if you customize your execution to mobile in different ways, or just develop the execution for mobile first, it turns out to be a lot more effective. So for instance, in this one study that's sort of recent from last year, we saw that viewability would increase by 53%, which is not minor. Usability metrics would increase by 39%, and engagement would increase by almost 50%. So it's a pretty big difference, and if you look at different sources of data, it becomes very obvious because sometimes you just like not even read the copy, so it cannot be effective. So sometimes it's very obvious, but it's not as simple. It's not as simple as just creating something that's bigger. There are a lot of nuances and a lot of elements that factors into development of an execution on mobile. So we went first to literature to see what's out there, to identify which are the areas that we wanted to research, that we wanted to understand better. And once we identified those areas, first of all, we went to the creative experts, and we went and asked them what they think should be different from mobile as compared to mainly TV, and how they think that things should be taken into account when developing something that's for mobile. So we went to creative experts from all of these big agencies, and that was done before the annual conference. and I presented this in the annual conference, and I'm going to very briefly summarize it, what they say. So we asked about the length of the ads. Almost all of them say that the length has to be different, that now it's not like 15 and 30, that there's not that much restriction. Most of them, around like 60%, say that less is better. So we found that interesting. They talked about adapting to the screen. So as I said, making the copy visible, making the brand visible, but also that a 15:9 might not really work anymore because that's kind of tiny, and that most of our usability is vertical. So we have to think something that's like 1 by 1 or even vertical. Sometimes and just have the user experience in mind when we're developing something for mobile. They were also asking about the fact that when we're using our mobile, most of the time we're not just using our mobile, we're doing something else. We're commuting, we're watching TV, we're doing whatever, and how do you factor that in? And someone talked about the 3-second rule, like having something strong the first 3 seconds. We'll see that maybe 2 seconds can be even too long, but generally they said that whatever assets you have celebrity, your brand, your product, just have it at the beginning. So we actually went and we'll see that and explore that further and see if there's any strong effect of that. Then we also asked them about the fact that our user experience very often does not involve audio, or we're like listening to music or listening to the radio while we're scrolling or reading something, and the ads have no audio. And then we asked, what do they think about that? And they said that it's really, really sad that we're missing on the audio portion on a video ad on mobile, but that we definitely have to create something that's understandable without audio and try to get them to activate the audio. We asked them about the fact that we can act upon an ad like right immediately. We can like it, share, download, purchase, everything, and that how to leverage that. And they said that you have to be clear in where the user is, what part of their purchase funnel, and be very clear in what you want the user to do, and communicate that with a very clear call to action. And then, and this will be for a different topic, we asked about how to take advantage of all the data that's provided by mobile, and they talked mainly about 3 things: track behavior to understand and to input that into your creative, test, use mobile and digital space to test, and also target to time of the day, demographics, psychographics, location, and everything. So now that we have the voice of the expert, we wanted to go into the lab and test all the things and understand better. Obviously, we believe them, but what they say is true, and why is it true, and how can we bring all that knowledge to the industry. So we focused for those 2 original experiments in the delivery format, which is not a minor thing. So how do we deliver this video ad? We all know, and there's some research out there, some from Past Experience right here, and we all know because it's our experience that when there's a pop-up ad, we hate it and we just want to close it. But there's a lot of other ways to deliver. The pre-roll, the mid-roll, is the audio automatic. You have to click to play it. This is like come out by itself. So we get into that. We tested a bunch of different formats, and we also still preliminary, but we already have some very interesting findings. Within that, we also studied the impact of audio by comparing click to play, but autoplay silent, which is the most common way of having an ad in stream, or with having the audio pop up automatically. And then we also tested within the very creative aspect, what is the impact of having early branding on your video on mobile, and to have a very clear also early call to action. So we did that to 2 original experiments, one with merchant mechanics, that's why we have Kimberly here, and the other one with Nielsen Consumer Neuroscience. So we're going to start with this one. It's both are like really, really exciting projects. So I don't know if Vanessa, if someone can tell me if Vanessa is on the line and she want to say something, then please let me know. If she's not, I will just continue.
And she'll need to identify herself so that we unmute her.
Yeah, she will need to identify herself.
No. Why don't you keep going?
I'll keep going. So it was a pretty cool experiment because so there were like 4 executions that actually they had already tested with Google, but they already had the data. So then it was a little easier because what we had to do is take those executions and we got a professional editor, obviously, and we modified a couple of creative elements. So it was very, very controlled. It's exactly the same execution, just what happens if to that execution we add and brand during the first 2 seconds, or what happens if we add the call to action within the first 2 seconds. That's it actually modified different things. This is on YouTube platform, so the skipping behavior will they skip less, but also eyeballs, like will they pay more attention to that, will they spend more time watching the ad, and also what's the engagement. So we had 100 participants for this study. Usually they were like prepared and calibrated. Here we had eye tracking, we had heart rate, and we had galvanic skin response. So first, they were just given a cell phone with YouTube experience. They would decide which video they want to watch, absolutely natural, and then the pre-roll that they could skip after 5 seconds was actually the pre-roll we wanted to study. So obviously, and you'll see that most times, like over 90% of the time, no matter which condition, they skipped. But we also wanted to have the response and the galvanic skin response for the whole ad. So after they had done that, they had gone through a survey asking purchase intent, edit recall, then they had to see the ad. And then we would get their galvanic skin response. Any question to the method? So again, it was really cool because we have 4 executions as they were, same for execution, adding brand in the first 2 seconds, and then the same for execution, adding call to action in the first 2 seconds. So this is what we found. So as I said, I was hoping for some change on the skipping behavior. That did not happen. They were not really that interested in the ad, so they skipped it at some point. The ads were 15 seconds, all of them. They could skip after 5 seconds. We're all familiar with that. But something we saw, here we're looking at data like the number of people within the sample that look, this is not just letting like the eyes were on the ad for more than 3 seconds. So if you look at the control, it's very low, so they had to wait for 5 seconds and it was there, but they were not really looking at it. But when there was something, some early asset, being branding or call to action, even like for branding, they were looking, almost all of them, at least for the first 3 seconds. Or for call to action, 90% of people were looking at least for the first 3 seconds. So you have something there, right? That you have an edge. There's an opportunity that they might keep looking. Obviously, as you saw the skip, but they were looking more.
So when did they usually skip? At what point?
That's a great question. I want to assume somewhere soon after 5 seconds, but I'm really not sure. I have this information here in that Excel sheet.
So the percent, then, just so I'm interpreting it correctly, is what? Give me a sentence as to what the 46 to the 90.
Oh, out of that 100 people, how many people spend more than 3 seconds looking at the ad? This is probably all pre-scale, like during those 5 seconds. You know, like you started, and then it's there, and you just have to wait for 5 seconds.
Right.
It was just like looking elsewhere, but when there was early brand, they were looking at the ad.
Okay. So that was from.
That's from the ad tracking. Right. But then in general, when we look at the average fixation time in the ad compared to all the time that the ad is actually on the screen, we see that it's only early brand that has an edge here compared to like control or higher call to action. And that's not actually consistent later. We see call to action, like there was something there to look at for 3 seconds, but maybe that call to action was not engaging enough, something that they it didn't really modify behavior past those first 3 seconds. And this is also from the eye tracking, the average fixation time on the ad compared to the time that the ad was on the screen. Oh, there you go. And then, as I said, we also observed the whole experience, the whole very natural experience where they were using YouTube as you use YouTube and skip and do whatever you want. They were forced to watch the ad because we wanted to collect their galvanic skin response to the ad. So what you're seeing here is the amount of time in the ad that the galvanic skin response was above a threshold. In this case, like 60 out of 100 in the scale that they use as a consumer neuroscience. So we're seeing here that the early branding that was also that was only on the screen for the first couple of seconds actually impacted the emotional reaction for the whole ad. And that was also true when we look at individual ads, which is exactly the same ad, and then exactly the same ad with early branding in the first couple of seconds. We saw a very significant difference on that. So just having the early branding actually impacted the emotional response to the whole ad. So that's interesting. That's good.
A question, I guess, for Nielsen on this is how much validation work has been done around galvanic skin response as a behavioral indicator of engagement?
I'll add to that. Michael, can I ask you to sit here and answer?
Sure.
Quite a bit in different validation contexts. One thing to consider, though, we've done a lot less on the mobile platform. So most of the validation work around the biometric responses is on the TV platform. So this is utilized as well.
Okay, so the validation, is it convergent validity where it correlates to other engagement defined in other ways? I'm trying to actually get
engagement defined in other ways.
Why should I believe that galvanic skin response is a measure of engagement? That's my question.
Right. So a variety of things have been done with this on the convergent validity issue. So one thing, for example, is looking at population level statistics on things like set-top box data. So content that more people tune into also tends to have a higher biometric response.
Mm-hmm.
We've done this more extensively outside of biometrics with EEG data and have found that content that elicits more engagement as measured with the EEG data actually is associated with sales lift as measured in 2 different ways, through market mix modeling and through signal source measures.
Okay, so those are at very aggregate level.
Yes.
But the EEG correlating to galvanic skin response, which is an easier process to administer, is
some of the
that.
parameters of the EEG also correlate with some of the parameters of the galvanic skin response, but they have very different time courses. So the GSR responses are relatively slow relative to the rapid oscillation we see in EEG measures. So in terms of ad diagnostics, the 2 approaches provide differential information.
Okay. But maybe a totally naive question and something that wouldn't have occurred to anyone else, but since this is the place where we get to ask it.
And a good opportunity to ask it.
Yes, also predicted, and the study with North Carolina also found some prediction of single source, right?
Yes, that's what it's referring to.
Thank you.
Thanks. So then we asked our friends from Google using all their research that they've done. They found something compelling related to having early branding because they have all that data, obviously. And so they referred me to this study from 2015 in which they tested different, over 650 ads with Google branding, and they found that having the brand in the first 5 seconds increased ad recall significantly. So we can say so far that early branding on mobile makes advertising more effective because of different reasons. The early call to action didn't seem to have that massive effects, but early assets is always good, but early branding it seemed to lead to higher visual attention, higher emotional engagement, and also higher ad recall. So that was good, and then we have all the huge amount of data from the different placements in which we tested these ads, and I'm going to let my friend Kimberly talk about what we did in this huge study.
Cool. So to step back for a minute, Torch and the others at the beginning of this talk we're talking about how affect and mood and context, need state, channels, day parting work to influence the ad perception of the ads and whether or not there is attention or engagement associated with those different contexts. And this study, in a way, is flipping the lens a bit and looking at the vehicle that the ads on mobile are delivered and how that impacts the perception of the ad, and that impacts the perception of the mood state. So it's just a little the flip around. And because, as we're all well aware, the industry in terms of ad spend is fundamentally shifting dollars to mobile and away from TV, even though some have disagreed earlier this week. The writing is on the wall, the mobile is here to stay, increased ad spend is happening, but in terms of understanding what efficacy is with respect to attention and engagement, it's like the Tower of Babel, and there are creators that are using their own measures in terms of percent of time on screen, in terms of play time, click-through rate. So what we wanted to do is establish a ground truth study where we threw the kitchen sink at this and established some, to your point, Scott, to establish some reliability, convergent reliability across sources. And we have the ability now, using an array of traditional self-report, click behavior, along with some eye tracking and some more novel data streams like EEG, engagement and attention scores, like GSR, although I can talk about the nuances between phasic and tonic and event-related activity with that, and with facial affect as well. We are able to take the measures that are comfortable in the industry at present and then corroborate their validity in terms of behaviors on the other side, in terms of actual time with eyeballs on ads to relate to the percent viewed, or actual click-through rate, or unaided and aided recall, intent to purchase ad blockers, things like that. And so I'll walk you through the process that we typically use. This is just a machine and we have a process in play, but the process can then inform some of the models that you were discussing earlier to establish the ROAS. And so each of these streams comes in isolation. However, there's a lot of collinearity for the stats buffs in the room. And so once we have these data streams in their independent forms, we can then create meta-metrics based on what hangs together that most are predictive of some of these outcome behaviors that the ad industry desires to understand better. And it sounds pie in the sky now, but what is currently being developed are ways in which we can use the inputs on mobile devices, such as the sensors and the cameras, to look at things like that have greater sensitivity with respect to the consumer in terms of the arousal levels and in terms of the fixation information. We can then work to triangulate efficacy. So this particular study, and I thank the ARF on behalf of Merchant Mechanics for having us run this, and it's been fast and furious. And thank you to the sponsors, to the 6 brand sponsors who donated their ads for tests. Right now we are neck deep, as Amy is in data, but we are moving forward in the right direction, and we're continuing to round out a data set of 144 subjects where we're reporting out some of the preliminary findings here today, But the stepwise path to this is to then segment in terms of millennials and Gen X to see if there are any responses that attenuate by age. And we're also going to look at gender breakouts as well. And then after we have some of our predictive models in place, we will then thank the brand sponsors, and I think they're going to do a roadshow, maybe a go around that has been discussed, where we will collapse across placement strategies and delivery strategies and report out to each of the sponsors the efficacy of their particular ad relative to the others in this particular study. So we had 6 different conditions. Next slide. Yep. So we systematically test 6 different conditions of placement, 2 pre-roll, 1 incentivized and 1 non-incentivized of autoplay for the pre-roll, and then an incentivized click-to-play, and then 4 variations of the in-stream or mid-roll delivery, meaning what the autoplay with silent audio, autoplay with click-to-play audio, adhesion, and just full-on click-to-play. And we showed individuals 6 different trials maintaining consistent editorial content, right? So we didn't want to bias. We tried very hard to find the correct medium in which to deliver these ads across different placement strategies and delivery strategies. So individuals would consume 6 different trials, and we would record all of their behavior that we just mentioned. And then as actually prior to the test out, we select state and trait, personality trait, and affective state. How happy or sad were they? How hungry are they? And in general, there's a BISBAT, which we know from EEG work, where individuals have predispositions for being extroverted or introverted or approach and avoid behavior. So we have that lens on the consumer as well that goes into our models. And then following the task, they are asked a series of unaided and aided recall and then preference measures in a self-report. And so all of that data gets boiled up for each of the subjects, and then we can triangulate what hangs together in terms of predicting the level of the percent of content of ad watch, the incidence of click-throughs or skips, and so forth. So what we'll do now is, I guess I'll shift it over, and we can talk specifically about some of the example data at this first pass.
Right. So I wanted to make all of this huge amount of data a little bit more digestible. So I divided the results in the way I'm going to present it. First in 4 different delivery formats, and then I will focus on, within that in-stream ad, what's the impact of having it run automatically, having it run automatically with audio, or having to click on it. So that will be later. So now I'm going to focus on the same executions again. How do they perform if it's a pre-roll? That means it goes at the top of the article and it's playing automatically as you go in. In-stream, so in the middle of the article, how does it perform? And it plays automatically and silent, because that's like the most common way we experience it. The pop-up that we all love in the middle of the article on your face with audio and everything. And then this one experience.
I like the insect icon, because I always feel like it's like.
Yeah. And that's a response. That's fine. That's a great metaphor. And then we have this other unit that, so you just start to see around, but it's probably still yet underused, in which you have to click, so you control, and you're getting something in exchange. So for instance, our friend Mario and team Spotify, they have that unit that if you don't see, they have 30 minutes of hassle-free and ad-free experience, or sometimes you can get something in return. So here they were getting a monetary incentive. So within these 4 conditions, that's the only one in which they had to opt in, so the other ones were delivered. So first of all, 68% opted in. So we'll see that that's a lot higher than you normally opt in to watching an ad, because obviously you're getting something in exchange. But let's look that these were all 15-second ads. How much time did they spend looking at the ad? How long were the eyes at the ad? So when there was an incentive, they were watching almost the whole thing. When there was no incentive, like the pop-up, you just barely 2 seconds, so as fast as you can get to the ad. When you see a stream, fast as you can scroll through.
They're trying to hide the ad.
Yeah.
They are, it's on the left now.
It's like searching.
Right. That's why it was 2 seconds.
Right.
And you see the pre-roll, they did look on average a little bit above 5 seconds, so that's really something.
What would be examples of incentives?
There's several different kinds of incentives, and I think that, moving the cart before the horse, that's an area that is really rich to pursue and consideration, because you have monetary windfalls or payoffs, right? What is the least amount that the ad industry can do monetarily to get them to convert to watching the ad? But then there's the time, ad-free time, right? And we couldn't actually use that in manipulation because we were testing multiple trials, so that wouldn't have worked. But there's also the games. So it really depends across the context of the channel. So gamers get a free store if they're willing to go through and watch this particular ad.
Right, free bonus, free points,
right,
points.
So there's many different areas to explore, and that is again dependent on the channel that's being consumed. But we're trying to hold that content. Incentive.
No,
monetary.
There was a monetary incentive here.
Right.
Yeah, it was.
Was there one set amount for the
Right.
purposes of this thing?
Yeah, we were just trying to lay a ground truth, and we didn't know who was predisposed to what game, so we kept the content, the editorial content, as neutral as possible to remove that as potential content.
But you're taking out a free Wi-Fi.
The incentive.
Yes.
So just for the folks on the phone, the discussion in the room has been some clarification around the incentive. The incentive was monetary. It was consistent across all different things, and tried to be as non-biasing as possible.
Right. Some airports you see now free Wi-Fi if you watch an ad. So that's good. I'm happy to do that. You get a free article. There are ways to play around it. So then we looked at the galvanic consumer response at the onset of the ad, so the difference between before watching the ad and right when you start watching the ad. And we found, and I wanted to mark with this red line here at the bottom, which are the ad units that were more disruptive, because the pre-roll was at the beginning, so you had to study your experience, and the payoff you're controlling, so it's absolutely non-disruptive. But the one in stream is there in the middle, so it's sort of disruptive, and obviously the pop-up is very disruptive. So you can see that there's a large stuttering response when the pop-up comes out, which is not super surprising. The payoff we see like zero response here, because you're ticking. Kimberly was mentioning before that when people saw the incentive, there was a response.
But it didn't lead over in terms of the GSR response. It didn't lead over, but there was an increase in activation in GSR when they were reading the incentives.
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
Yeah.
That should be right.
Yeah.
By the way, you had me at basic and tonic, so I know that you're going to answer this question. When it comes to GSR, we know that the temporal resolution, you can have a delay from anywhere from 1 to 4 seconds.
Right.
So when you're dealing with such small fractions of time, like the brand being present in the first 2 seconds, for example, how do you deal with the lag?
Right.
Can you repeat the question before you answer it?
So he's asking, because of the time course difference, is that okay?
Yeah, no,
Because of the time course.
No, it's for the people on the line.
Okay, because of the time course difference, so EEG is very temporally sensitive. I'm just going to keep talking.
Yeah.
EEG is very temporally sensitive, right? But the time course of a GSR response takes about 3 to 5 seconds before it hits. And so, to answer your question specific to this, the average time course for the reading the incentive is around 10 seconds. But to answer your point about how we actually create a metric that's usable, we take out the phasic and we have a weighted response where it's looking at the frequency of event-related escape conductance, and multiplicated by the amplitude. So we know a rate, in other words. And so we're looking at that rate difference. Cool.
Okay. So then we kept looking at the differences across these four units, and we looked at neural indicators to the EEG of motivation. And then we found, as you can see here, that the two units that are less disruptive, they're more motivating. You know, people are more likely to want to lean in and interact. And then we looked at recall, and obviously we saw that the payoff ones, the ones people watch it more, followed by the pre-roll. So those two have much higher recall rate than the ones that are disruptive. But then we also, and this is very, very in line with all of these results, they also asked them.
Manuel?
Yeah.
And did you do significance testing on the unaided recall?
We did, but at 90%.
At 90%?
The standard is 95%.
Is it? Okay, and what did you find significant?
There is a significant contrast difference between payoff and pop-up.
Between payoff and pop-up?
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, this is where we're headed to really parse into that.
No,
These data not based on false exposure?
Oh no, they are doing what they do.
Even though they click away after 5 seconds?
Here they might have, for the pop-up they haven't got it to 5 seconds, and for the in-stream they scroll very quickly. Yeah, but like the payoff, as we said, 70% people watch it almost entirely. And the pre-roll, they were like around 5 seconds, so and the unaided recall is what is brand awareness, right? So they're asking.
Didn't you say that 90% of people click away from pre-roll?
That was a different experiment.
So the ad recall measures that ad content or brand recall?
It is both. Yeah.
Do they differ?
So I did unaided and aided recall, where I collapsed brand and product, and then also I had an aided recall, which we don't even talk about, where in terms of the brand and products, we had their #1 competitor as well. So that's more to talk about. Yeah. But we thought about that.
There's so much data out there, so we'll come up with more when we have more weekends. Then it was very interesting because I totally forgot about this, but they were also asking them after their experience, how much would you pay for an ad blocker? which is really interesting, and well, you can see here the data is speaking for itself. The two units that were much more disruptive, they're like, I'll pay everything. Don't throw this thing in my face. But for the payoff and the pre-roll, they were not that much that disruptive. For the payoff, I'm even shocked because they're getting money.
That's a great point.
But the pre-roll, I was very shocked with the positive results of the pre-roll. You're not giving them anything, you're just like putting it there at the beginning.
But the payoff is, I mean, shouldn't it be the other way around? Wouldn't you expect that?
I would expect that.
I would expect that, but I thought that they might have been biased by the monetization at first, so they already have a price point maybe that's influencing this.
No, I mean, it's interesting. Makes you think, right?
Right.
What's wrong with the payoff?
Yeah, I mean, that's my favorite, always. So that's what we found for the different formats. Obviously, there's a lot more to dig in, and we'll come back with more. So just simplifying it to all we can to make it very actionable. We would recommend to leverage incentives. Definitely do not disrupt. Let's be that fly in your face. And very important to give the user control.
And one of the considerations too, in the past, we have a lot of experience in shopper marketing and thinking about the physicality of the space, the dimensionality of the space, and how consumers focus attention as a function of a need state is very similar. They're finding a lot of parallels here in on the mobile. There's a dimensionality to the mobile as well. One recall, we had worked with a yogurt company years ago, and they had these banner ads, which are like banner ads online, but they were actually physical banner ads at shelf, and they were having us measure incidents of awareness of this particular signage, and the awareness was very low, even though it was right in the consumer space. Their visual attention was not focused on that. Their visual attention was directed by their need state. And in the same way, the adhesion acts much the same way as that physical sign, in that individuals are trying to consume the information behind it, and so it may attract initial awareness, but it's only enough of an awareness to click off, to skip it. It's not actually a meaningful engagement with the ad. So there's differences in considering the utility of that. And there's also Mahali Csikszentmihalyi, which I'm probably butchering his name, but yes, but flow state. So he has studied the flow experience, and I think that that's one of the aspects of the pre-roll being so effective, in that there are different temporal sequences of what you choose to expect in your consumption. And if you violate that midstream, or if you violate that with adhesion, it breaks the flow of the content. And actually, we also rated we had the consumers or the participants rate with a 5-star Likert rating, as well as whether or not they would tweet or share this online, and the editorial content, and the placement of the ad, and the perception bleeds over into the overall perception of the content, even though the content was the same across all conditions. So there's something to be said about the impact. There's a reciprocity there.
And then finally, I wanted to focus on that in-stream. So how does it change it by all the different modalities we have? So we know the most common way we have to find that video ad in-stream is automatic but silent, that you would have to click to play the audio. So that's the autoplay. Yes. Then we also wanted to test, the exact same execution if the audio were to pop up also automatically. And then that same ad is just static there, and you have to click to play. So we tested that, and they are all in-stream, so they can be very well comparable. So that click to play, almost 20% of people click, which is not bad actually. Then on the autoplay, how many people would we think that click for the audio? That was like 3%. That's very, very low. Then let's see how much time they spend. That 20% that click to play, they watch it a little bit longer, but it's like an average of 4 seconds. When the audio was on, I think they were scrolling even faster than in general. So that was like very, 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 very low, just trying to avoid it. So click to play sort of performs a little better here. When we look at the GSR, for the autoplay, it's very low. It's like they just ignored it, and that's it. I went by. It had like, it's funny because it had like literally almost no effect at all, or anything. Click to play, you are controlling, so then like we see before with the payoff, the response was not that high, but when the audio was popping up, there was a response. And now was that response positive or was that response negative? Obviously it was negative.
Right. So I'm starting to wonder whether GSR is measuring engagement or measuring annoyance.
So it's important to have some combination.
We corroborate that as do our partners here in the room, where we corroborate that with facial affect. There's caveats to that with the automated facial affect, but if you know what to look for, you can use 2 metrics together to indicate valence.
So here we have facial affect that we're reporting right now. We have the EEG motivation indicator. We have recall. We have other things that we can use to try to understand the data. Right. So then looking at
the relationship to memory is I think pretty critical as well. Where we have some
at the end of the day,
measure of that, because arousal might be the thing that's getting in the way of that, which was kind of where I was puzzling over that chart where you see high arousal at the beginning and then, full recall at the end. So it's very, very, very interesting.
Yeah. So to understand that, we also look for those 3 as the new indicator of motivation. And we said, was that hit in the results for audio positive or not? It was negative. Motivation was negative. Again, autoplay, totally neglected. They didn't look at it. They didn't react to it. Scroll through. Click to play was positive, but they were clicking to play. So they already have some behavioral when we look at recall for these three conditions in stream, it was always very low. There wasn't much to be said. And again, when we're asking about how much they would pay for not blocker, when that audio was popping unexpectedly and not asked for, they would pay for $10 for a blocker. Yeah. So very importantly, let the user control their audio, don't store it, and designer just try hard with creative elements to have them opt in, but don't store it in the faces. So just to sum it up, what we found in this first weekend of looking at the data, we found that there's a lot of positive outcomes of branding early on mobile. That is definitely very important to not be disruptive and to let them have control over the audio and over the whole experience. And it seems to be positive to leverage incentives. You guys have a question?
Thank you very much. A quick question. When we've got some of these negative things coming through, do we know how that is impacting on brand perception? So does that mean that people actually feel more negatively about the brand that they've just seen advertised?
I didn't look specifically, our team did not look specifically at the impact of negativity on the brand itself. You can flip that around and say, you know, did you remember? And that's more of a positively oriented with respect to the brand. Yes,
no, I want to put in a request. I would absolutely expect it to impact brand perception, but we don't have an answer right now on that.
Well, Kimberly, thinking about the data that we just saw, it struck me that for a lot of the executions that were annoying, there seemed to be such a focus on avoidance that you almost didn't even have a chance to figure out who the culprit was. So in other words, they get unpunished, except everybody gets punished because it increases the sense of ad avoidance. But the individual advertiser doesn't seem to get punished because they didn't enough time to register who the bad guy was.
Yeah, the recall was super low,
Right, but then...
Does that make sense?
It makes absolute sense, but then, so what would be impacted is if you had the brand that was present or within the first frame that was viewable as you're scrolling through, then perhaps in that instance it might actually make a negative impact in that placement. But that's like getting down.
So to summarize for the people on the phone, because I'm in front of the microphone, what we're talking about is the negative impact and the ad blocking of the ads. And Horst from the ARF was making the comment that because you kind of get annoyed by the ad and skip it before you know who the advertiser is, the advertiser who forced you to skip is not getting punished from the action, but ads overall are getting punished because there's a level of annoyance that translates throughout the industry.
Let me add one point. Unless maybe you've already done this, but I think it would be fascinating to repeat this kind of experiment with two groups. Those who say, this is my favorite brand, and those who say, I totally have no interest in this brand, to see if people who really like a brand are more, are accepting, which would mean that if you're targeting current users, you can get away with more. It's a hypothesis, but I don't know if it's right?
We're just asking brand questions before and after the study.
Yeah.
See if there's a lift or
that's another way.
The opposite.
Right, but I'm looking a little bit differently, which is because there's so much advertising for big brands, whether the fans of the brand permit you to do more crap.
Right.
So the discussion again for the folks online from the people in the room is if we were able to redo the study and identify fans of the brand versus people that are negative or neutral to the brand, would they skip less? Does being a fan of the brand make you inherently more engaged in their message?
I think the results correspond a lot to the work being done elsewhere in the industry about digital ad format. And they bring to mind to me, as someone who kind of came up in the magazine business where you don't have interrupted ads. So it's the secret sauce, in my view. The reason that magazine advertising works well is because it doesn't challenge the user's control, whereas television does, and digital has adopted a television model, where, it's a tech war constantly between the consumer who's being, beaten up. So this is sort of saying, don't beat them up so much, and maybe you'll be more effective. Kind of make them want you as opposed to jumping out and mugging them.
I think that the millennials and the younger group who are more into, naturalistic, personalization, but they're less tolerant. So it'll be interesting to see if there's differences across age groups.
Now, will we have, I know you've got a millennial audience.
Yes.
Is that something part of your analytic plan going forward?
Right. So the 3 phases are just as holistic across the board. Let's look at our subjects. And then let's do a breakout by the 2 age groups, so millennials and Gen X, and then also by gender. And then the third pass is actually for each sponsor.
So putting the sponsors aside right now, not that we never ignore our sponsors, Joe. I know. But trying to just focus in on over the next coming, week and a half to 2 weeks. It'll be great if you're able to make progress. I think that question is going to come up a lot about, are any of these behaviors, do they vary by generation? There are so many presumptions about how millennial consumers may or may not behave differently from Gen X consumers. So that evidence will be really valuable.
Yeah.
So.
And again, just to make sure the folks on the line could hear, what we're talking about is we have the data to make a break between Gen X and millennials, and the hope is that we could at least get some of that, at least from a directional standpoint, available for the June 12th presentation.
One question though, I don't know if I asked. I remember at the beginning of the presentation, I thought I did about variable call to action. Is that something that you say later? Did I misinterpret that? Is the call to action affecting with the audio enablement? Or am I not hearing it at all correctly?
Yeah, at the beginning of the presentation, I was talking about a different study that we did with Nielsen Consumer Neuroscience, in which we took some execution, and on one condition, we added early branding. Yeah. That's all the results we saw. And in another condition, we added early call to action. And then what happened is that we did not really see much of a difference with adding final text. It was different for each one of the ads. Some of them were actually using the call to action they had at the end and putting it at the beginning and see if there was an impact of that.
Oh, okay.
There wasn't that much of an impact other than it would sort of capture the attention a little bit, and there would be more people looking at the ad for the first 3 seconds, but we didn't see an impact of visual attention after that, ad recall, or engagement.
So just under early branding issue, that general topic also is probably not limited to mobile. We know that early branding is probably efficacious for television advertisers too, for a variety of reasons. And brand advertisers get that. Creative teams often are a little resistant to embed that in their day-to-day practice. So do you think, since you're forced to shorter ads and getting information up front on the mobile platform, that this piece of advice will have do more to move the needle on the creative development side than it has on, say, television?
You know what happens that on mobile you have an opportunity that is 5 seconds on YouTube, 2 seconds on anything else, and then if you have something on second number 10, you'll be able to scroll through or you'll be able to skip. On TV, you have the opportunity in second 5 to bring the attention back, maybe using the audio because people are looking away. So I think that this applies a lot more to mobile than it would apply to television, because maybe television is more common to not look at in the first 5 seconds because you're doing something else, and then play.
But brand recall tends to be better if you have early branding
on
television, and there's other evidence to suggest that it's efficacious there as well. But it just, creative teams have not looked kindly on that piece of advice, at least in my experience.
Yeah, they don't win awards. They just
exactly.
Right. They just try to growth and profit.
Well, it goes back to the same point that you guys have made a few times, which is like the creative matters so much. because it is possible to have a better brand recall with branding at the end if the creative builds towards it and evokes curiosity such that when the brand is revealed, it's a big moment. The problem is that a lot of times the creative is not that high quality, and therefore you never get it. So it may be seen by creatives as a crutch to put it early. And in fact, that might actually be true, but just a lot of creatives may not want to admit that they need that.
Were there any details about how to do early branding? Like, is just showing the badge enough, or do you have to say it as well? Does it have to get a scene say?
Oh, in this experiment, we're just putting the logo.
Can you just repeat?
So just to repeat some of the discussion for the folks online, we're talking about early branding, how important it is to television ads as well as just mobile ads. We're talking about whether the shorter formats, which just by the nature of whether they're on television or mobile, force the branding in sooner. And then Joe from Nissan asked if we're talking about early branding, are we talking about just having the logo visible, or are we talking about having see and say and those types of things? And Manuel's response was that in this experiment we looked at just visual of the brand.
Yeah, he was just adding the logo in the first 2 seconds.
So in the
we know in general audiovisual is better if you have like visual and then the audio, then it's going to be more effective. But in this case, we're only playing with the visual.
What I found interesting, Manuel, when we were presenting the Google data that they provided to you, they said one of the bullets was to show the logo not on the product.
Oh, yeah, that's from that.
So that might be a key determinant of logo as hero versus, you know, logo on a car or on a soda
Or
can.
then you just, Twitter just showing your website, something like that brand. It shows Nissan.com.
Yeah.
Manuel, what was the Google finding? Was it better or worse with the logo?
The finding that I was referring to is that the branding the first 5 seconds would increase ad recall. What they also found in that study is that having the logo not together with the product was negative for brand lift. I don't know exactly which one of the metrics for the brand lift. We can look at that study. That study is public.
So again, for the folks online, when we're talking about early branding, the Google study shows that it's more effective if that branding is showing the logo on the product and showing the product itself than just having.
I thought it was the other way around.
Okay, well that's what I'm asking. Which way was it?
That slide is it?
Sure, I'm just scroll.
Okay.
Oh boy, at the very beginning.
It's fine, I get there.
Right. For the folks online, we're looking for clarification of whether the super of the brand logo or the product was more effective from the Google study.
Here you go.
If your eye is averted because you're testing.
Actually, if you look at the paper, the logo on the product did not really modify brand lift too much. The logo, none of the product was negative for brand lift.
On the topic, I had that conversation with members